Welcome to the Owl Hoot podcast with me, Caroline Norbury. This is a show for any person interested in the environment and sustainability. I arrived at a point in my own life where I wanted to know more about the state of our planet and how I can play my part, albeit small, in mitigating climate change, reducing pollution and supporting biodiversity. I decided that chatting to others who are already doing something might be a good place to start. So each episode will feature a different guest telling their stories in and around an environmental activity that will perhaps provide you with ideas that you can incorporate into your own life. Enjoy listening and let me know if you have a topic you'd like to hear more about on the podcast, and I'll do my best to address it. In this episode, I'm excited to be joined by Greg Hewitt, Community Lead for Plastic Free Chesterfield, one of over 700 communities in the Plastic Free network, aiming to eliminate single-use plastics. Collective action is at the heart of the Chesterfield organisation, with over 50 community groups and 50 businesses signing up to pledge their support for the campaign and to reduce their own adoption of single-use plastics. Greg has extensive experience in championing many different community projects, particularly those with an environmental focus. Alongside his current community role, he works as a fundraising and communications assistant at Derby Museums. I'm keen to find out more about Greg and the Plastic Free Network. So without further ado, I welcome Greg to the podcast.
Hello. Hi, thanks for having me.
You are more than welcome. So I'm going to start off, as I always do, and find out a bit about how you came to be where you are now. So I know that you had a degree in digital media. How did you decide on that particular area to look at, and where did it then go to in terms of all these lovely community groups that you've been involved with?
Yeah, I think, I studied environmental science at college, and I had a kind of a general interest in the environment because I like to go for walks and appreciating nature around when I was growing up. So I thought about studying environmental science, and so I studied that at college, and then my main focus was always in IT. So I was always wanting to study IT and kind of do digital stuff. Yeah. So what happened was that after university, I was looking for work experience to kind of gain some volunteering experience so that I could kind of boost my CV. And one thing I found an organisation in Winchester in Hampshire called Winchester Action on Climate Change. And I thought, that's interesting, because they were looking for a web assistant. So I thought, well, that's really interesting because I've studied IT and I've got web experience, but I've also studied environmental science, so I've kind of got that kind of experience as well. And so I volunteered for that organisation, and it was really interesting because they kind of opened the doors so much to me for so many different things. So they introduced me, for example, to transition towns, which is all about community action on the environment, really, basically not waiting for government to do anything. It's basically just kind of getting together in your local community and doing something good, practical projects in your community that help improve the environment. And it was great that I just got so excited about the idea of it, and I think I was like, wow, this is just such an amazing thing to do, to be able to bring people together in your community and do good things. And then it actually inspired me that much. I actually then started my own transition group in the town that I grew up in, and that was really interesting, just sort of being able to sort of run a group like that. I'd never run a group before, done anything like that before. So it was, kind of very, very interesting. But I think what was interesting from that was that as soon as you kind of get involved in, and it's kind of like people always ask, what was that moment when you kind of really started to like change, or like what was it that opened your eyes in like, to environmental activism or environmental projects? And for me, it was being introduced to transition towns from this Winchester Action on Climate Change, and it was from there I it just spiraled, really, because I got involved in a local transition group. I set my own one up, and then moved to Southampton a year later, and I got involved in Transition Southampton and got involved in organising projects and stuff there. And then I moved up to Rutland and Oakham in Rutland, and I got involved in Transition Rutland there. Yeah, but also at the same time, like what was interesting, I also got introduced into Friends of the Earth as well. So so when I was in Southampton, I was asked to sort of help lead. I was asked because people knew of my work with the transition towns. Someone said, "Oh, why don't you have a go at leading on the Friends of the Earth group?" So I just kind of had a go at kind of just organising a couple of activities for the local Friends of the Earth group, and I then found myself dressing up as a bee and organising bee walks around Southampton and doing all sorts of. I think I ended up even one summer I ended up organising a bee festival or something like that, where we had stalls and sort of crafts and face painting, and we showed the bee movie, and it was just like, yeah, it was all crazy stuff really. And then that even pushed forwards through to when I moved out of Oakham, I moved to Nottingham, and I joined Nottingham Friends of the Earth. And then I kind of got involved in more bee stuff because there was more bee things going on. So I organised a bee banquet, and where we worked in partnership with local community allotments and community gardens to be able to get some produce made pollinated by bees and cook, and got some local cooks to cook it up. And we did a little bee banquet, and we got the local council on board, and we got the local beekeepers to come and give a talk about what they were doing. And so, yeah, that was really fascinating. But yeah, obviously at the same time, I was kind of still involved in sort of transition projects. So I was always kind of doing that moment of like working between Friends of the Earth groups and transition. And I thought that was kind of really good, because I always believed in the idea of like, well, community action is really important, and being able to just get on with the community projects. And I was involved in Transition Sherwood and Nottingham, and just heavily involved in organising projects there. But at the same time, I thought, oh well, I really understand the need for lobbying and kind of, trying to really push for sort of political action as well. And so that's kind of why I always kind of thought, well, Friends of the Earth and transition go really well hand in hand together. So, and then so like it just spiraled really from there. And I just, when I moved to Chesterfield as well, I kind of wanted to kind of get involved in something as well. So because I think when I was in Nottingham, I was heavily involved in the anti-fracking campaign, because I really wanted to do something about this issue, because I found out all about fracking, and so I wanted to start campaigning on these issues. And so I kind of just heavily got myself involved in that. And then 5 years later, I thought, how am I still doing this 5 years on? Like, we're still campaigning, and how am I still doing all this kind of thing? And it's, yeah. And then you just think, and then you just sort of think, and then when Facebook sends you sort of your memories, you kind of think, oh, like you're sending me pictures of the time I dressed up as a bee, and when I was in Southampton, and that time, when I was lobbying and organising a fracking public meeting and all this kind of stuff. So it's, so I've got quite a bit of experience now.
You certainly have. Two things that you've got to have, I imagine, to have done all those different things was one, you've got to be a team player, but also it sounds like you've done a fair bit of leadership on projects. Has that always been something that you've been good at, or is it just by virtue of the fact that you became interested in something that you discovered, oh well, actually this is who I am?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was just kind of like, I think I don't know, it probably all started from that time where I thought, oh, I'm just going to try and start my own transition group. And I was like, I believed in it so passionately. I just thought, well, I'm just going to take it on, but like, I think I was always keen to ensure that it's not just me doing it. And I think like you said about team player and things, since like when I started my own transition group in my own town where I grew up, I was always keen to set it up with someone. So like I got partnered up with someone in my local area, and because I kind of started making contacts and started working together and building up almost like a steering group of people to kind of work with. So it was never just me leading the group by itself. It was, and I always believed in that, because I thought I can never do anything really by myself, but it's all about if we can work together collectively as a team, and we can really plan this. And so, when we were organising around the transition project at the beginning, we had like meetings, steering group meetings, planning projects, and and what we would do, and that just kind of went forwards, like just moving forwards. When I started running projects, like especially when I moved into Nottingham, and I started a community social eating cafe, where it was never just going to be me that was going to organise this. When I set about opening up a community social eating cafe, I thought, well, I'm not that good of a cook. I'm all right. I can cook a bit. I know how to cook, but I'm not that good of a cook. I'm and I just, and I thought, well, okay, so if I'm not so good about what to do on this, I'm just gonna bring people in who do know. So like I put a call out through transition. I think I put a call out through the Transition Sherwood group, for example, in Nottingham, for people to come and help. And sure enough, people did, and people kind of volunteered themselves, and we met in a pub, and it was all about kind of sharing ideas, and people kind of had all these ideas of how we could work, and again, that was it again, holding sort of volunteer group meetings, where it was never just me saying, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. It was all about how can we collectively do something, and it was. I never wanted to sort of say, oh, we should be doing this, or setting the decisions. I always thought, well, I'll just ask people, like I'll just be, and I think I just ended up learning facilitation skills from there, really, like learning about just sort of being able to, just like, sort of ask other people for their ideas and kind of come up with things like that, really. Because I think for me, it tends to be that I tend to sort of get a lot of energy from other people. So like I might not think of an idea myself, but if someone comes up with an idea, I might sort of start bouncing off that, and I start kind of thinking about all these kind of different ideas. But the other thing that I really like as well is that, like, and this is something that I've always had, is like since I've started community projects, is learning about what works elsewhere. So like, when I was in Nottingham, like wanting to start up a social eating cafe, I didn't just start doing it. I started making contacts. So like I started networking and started meeting people. So I met with Marsha Smith, who set up the Secret Kitchen in Nottingham, doing a social eating cafe, because she was the one who inspired me. So I kind of went to her saying, what do we do about this? How do we organize this? And, and how do you run your meals? And, so, and I think that's kind of been a really big issue for me. Like, it's been a real big thread for me, like what in all my projects, that I will always learn off other people. Like I know in the initial days, and when I was in Transition Southampton, I would always receive the main national transition network newsletter, and like I would always look at the projects other groups were up to around the country, and I just like opened this email like from them, and I was like, oh, they're doing this, group's doing this. I was like, oh, that group's doing that. It's like, maybe we can do that as well. So like, I might have kind of got a bit carried away with some of like my energy. And I know that was quite a bit of a challenge for me, like with when I moved to Oakham in Rutland, because I moved to the smallest county in the country, and like I'd come with all this energy and passion and enthusiasm and energy and wanting to do something and make a difference in the community, and then like I got introduced to the local Friends of the Earth group who were there, which was about 4 or 5 sort of older ladies, and I kind of went in with all these ideas and things to them, and they were like, oh, hang on, like, we don't know what to do. And I think they ended up sort of telling the National Friends of the Earth organization that I was a bit too much for them. So that
too much
they were
enthusiasm.
like, they were like, oh, I got a call from National Friends of the Earth, and they were like, oh, the local Friends of the Earth group has said that you were a bit too much energy for the local group. So I was like, I was just so deflated, because I was like, I've just moved to this new area, and I want to get involved, and I want to make a difference in my community, and these people are sort of stopping me from doing something because they don't want to work with me because I've got too much energy. So
it's not usually a bad thing, is it?
I know, and I was so frustrated, and so like I think I was quite glad to end up moving to Nottingham after that, because I needed it, where I needed to be in that city environment where there was already an existing Friends of the Earth group, there was already an existing transition group where I was moving to, and so like I could just kind of just get stuck in really there. And but I love it. I love the inspiration that I get from other projects, and it's always I always look at reinventing the wheel, because if something works elsewhere, then why not just do it again? And that's
Absolutely.
me, really.
It sounds eminently sensible to look elsewhere and say, oh, what has worked? Okay, let's try that. That does sound like a good strategy, and it's clearly been successful for you as you've gone through a number of different types of groups. How did you go from sort of transition and the sort of the cooking ideas to plastics?
I've always been interested in sort of tackling waste, right back from the transition days. I remember I think it might have even been one of the first meetings that I got that I went to in a transition town right from the very beginning, where we watched a film about waste, and we watched a film about the great garbage patch of plastic in the ocean, and these huge swarms of plastic just littering our ocean. And I just thought, this is just crazy. And I just, I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't know what. And then it just, things just evolved over time, really. So, so like the issue of waste, it was always kind of something I wanted to do. So like when I moved to Nottingham, I ended up starting up a repair cafe. So where we worked with the local hack space, they were called, and I kind of got them involved in sort of fixing up products, so that it was all about kind of trying to repair products that were broken, and empowering people to fix products and things. So there was that issue. But then also as well in Nottingham, at the same time, I ended up also starting up a new thing, which was about a new event rather than a project. It was an annual event, and that was called the Remarkable Recycling Gala. And that was all about kind of tackling waste. And it was all about, it was just all back from this, all these kind of facts that I'd learned all about plastic right from those years ago. And I wanted to do something sort of fun and different. So I organized this recycling gala once a year. I worked with the local, it was a Sherwood Arts Week, an already existing organization. And I thought, well, they're the perfect organization, because they were already organizing art and craft fairs. So I thought, well, because I went to the first year that they did, and they had some recycled art, and I loved that. And I thought, well, I just want to organize a festival that celebrates sort of artists and crafters who are recycling and turning, waste products into something new and something different. And there was a lot of artists that I really got inspired by like Sarah Turner, who's a really amazing, fantastic artist in Nottingham, who she kind of upcycles plastic bottles into lights and all these incredible kind of things. Really, it's just absolutely fascinating. And then I think like moving forwards after that, and there's Remarkable Recycling Gala was ran for many years, and it was really successful, and it is still going now, I think, even once I've moved on, which is always good to hear.
Yeah.
But then when I moved to Chesterfield, I was kind of thinking, like, what can I do? Because what can I really? I wanted to do something. I knew that it was an already existing transition group in Chesterfield, but I wanted to do something, and I just thought, well, yeah, what can I do? So I just started looking up different projects, and then I came across Plastic Free Communities, which is I was just kind of doing some search. I think what it was I was thinking about, probably on my mind at the time was, well, I've just finished five years of anti-fracking campaigning, and some of the issues that came up again in the anti-fracking campaigning was about plastics, because we started, especially toward the later years of the anti-fracking campaign, we started learning about this new fracking company called Ineos, and they were going to be fracking Sherwood Forest in Nottinghamshire to produce shale gas, which was then going to be it was going to be used to make plastics. So this gas was going to be used as a feedstock to make more plastics. And I just thought, this is absolutely bonkers. So like, it was really interesting to see, like, this interest, because I know when I first started campaigning about fracking, I didn't realize anything about plastics, but that, the more the years went on, like I learned about that they were using this, they wanted to do the fracking to, well, it wasn't a lot of the companies, like the original fracking companies like iGas, weren't looking at that, but it was only when INEOS came in, they specifically said that they wanted to use that gas for plastics. And so, the more I learn about INEOS, the more I wanted to do something about plastics, because I thought that's something a real issue, and we can't be producing more plastic because there's already a huge issue. So I knew that when I moved to Chesterfield, like the anti-fracking campaigning was sort of coming to an end, because there was a ban on fracking in Lancashire, and so I thought, well, okay, so what could I do next? So that's when I came across the Plastic Free Communities idea, because I just was looking for different projects, and I came across Plastic Free Communities, and I thought, oh, that sounds really interesting. And the Plastic Free Communities, what was interesting about it was, like, I'd already kind of done sort of campaigning experience and project work, and what I liked about the Plastic Free Communities was that it was 5 objectives. So they kind of, so it was really like going back to a campaign. So it was about, you've got 5 objectives to meet, and I just thought, okay, right, that's great, because it's like, rather than me trying to think of ideas, like, they already gave you the ideas, they already gave the objectives that you had to meet, and they gave you the, all the resources that you needed. They gave you a business toolkit, they gave you kind of resources and guides and links and everything that you could kind of facts and everything that you could use. So I was like, well, this is great, because everything is just all there that I can just start running with. And so I just kind of just start picking it up, really, and just that was it. And that's kind of what ended up starting Plastic Free Chesterfield in June 2019.
And in quite a short period of time, you've got quite a lot of local groups and businesses on board. How easy has that been to do?
Well, it was really difficult at first. I know, like, the first couple of months, it was a real struggle, because we just didn't have people. And I think what was challenging, like, I know that the initial challenge that I found was that, like, I went, for example, like the first few months, I started going out into, like, the town centre of Chesterfield, and just like I made these little flyers that said about, will you sign up to reduce single-use plastic? And what I found was that town was just so busy. It was just there were so many people out and about on a Saturday, because the only time, I was working full time, so there was no way that I could go out and about. So I started going out to these businesses, kind of giving them this flyer about plastic, and they just ignored me, because they were so busy trying to, they didn't have any time to talk to me, because they were so busy trying to serve the customers. So, like, I tried to kind of give them a flyer and things, and a lot of the time I just never heard back from the business. A lot of the businesses then didn't end up contacting me. So what I ended up doing was, I thought, well, okay, I'm going to have to recruit some volunteers. So I just kind of started putting a call out via, existing networks like Transition Chesterfield, looking for volunteers, as well as Facebook groups and stuff as well, looking for volunteers who were, like, retired people who could go to these businesses during the week when it was quieter. And they actually had, that was a good idea, I think, because there weren't as many customers out there was on a Saturday. And so they kind of started talking to businesses for me, and they started signing up a couple of businesses, which was really great. So it started picking up from there, sort of a couple of little things. At first we really started I think what was so good was that we just started tapping into the businesses that were already existing. So, like, we already had Steph Sustainable Stuff, who was already in existence. She was already running a zero waste shop in Chesterfield.
Perfect.
So, like, she was the most obvious one to sign up as the first plastic free champion. And then a couple of months later, there was a new business a new shop that opened called Waste Not Want Not in town, and so in another zero waste shop. So I thought, well, it's like, you kind of start reaching those, and then you start kind of reaching the kind of the easy ones, really. Like, I came across, like, I think I was on Facebook and saw some kind of advertisement for plastic free soaps or something, and they were advertising it as sort of plastic free vegan soaps, and I was like, well, I got an email then, and it's like, well, they, it's kind of getting these easy wins, because a lot of these businesses were already doing something. And then, it just started building from there, really, because the more other businesses heard about it, the more they want to sign up. So, like, I just started kind of going to local markets and speaking to some businesses, and I started going to, like, Christmas market and talking to businesses there. I joined, like, Facebook shop groups and business advertising groups where like I would just, if I saw some of their products and I thought, yeah, I'll message them to see if they want to sign up, and we got a couple of that way as well. But it just ended up spiraling from there really, and I don't know how that's happened, but then it just sort of just happens. It's just like
organically
I don't know how.
growing.
I just think it just that's the thing. More businesses to start kind of hearing about and want to kind of get involved.
Did you have that belief at the beginning that because obviously it sounded like it was quite tricky at the beginning, you had a bit of a setback. Was there ever a point where you thought, oh man, this just might not happen? Or did you think, no, I'm going to keep going, it's going to work?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was just so determined just to kind of keep going and just keep at it. I think. Yeah, it was really challenging. I think like my main frustration was working full time and not being able to go out into businesses, because I did, I'd done a lot of community engagement in my previous jobs and everything, and I do like going out and speaking to people and talking to people, and I think that was kind of my frustration, that I can't go out and speak to these people. I've got to kind of like message them on Facebook or something like that, and I think that was kind of frustrating, but. Yeah, I think it just happened really, and then I just wanted to keep going, and I think I just wanted to kind of keep celebrating it. So like I know when we got to like 25 businesses, we put out a press release, and that was really good because it was just a nice opportunity to kind of showcase what we were doing, and we started getting like the Derbyshire Times kind of starting to write articles about our group, and then it started just building the profile of the group really. So that's kind of what we did. Yeah, and I think like a lot of people will say as well, like how have you still managed to sort of sign up many businesses during COVID as well? Because beginning of last year we kind of had an idea, like, well, we started beginning of 2020 with 25 businesses, and we thought, okay, if we can finish the year with 50 businesses, that would be great. And like, and people will always sort of say, well, how was it that even during COVID you did actually, and because we got to December and we'd signed up 50 businesses, and I was like, and some people will say, well, how did you do that? And I think it was all about, again, it was the same kind of techniques. It wasn't about going out because we couldn't go out and about. It was all about just kind of using the same techniques as to what worked before. Just looking at a lot of businesses were starting to advertise on Facebook and offer home deliveries, and so there was a lot of businesses that would starting to advertise that way. So it was just about kind of tagging along on that really, and messaging them on Facebook and sending them details, and that just ended up sort of more businesses started signing up. It was just about persistence. Like I know that sometimes like I'd originally messaged like or emailed a business, and it like they never kind of got back to me, but it was just about continuously trying to go at it and just sort of seeing, not kind of like really annoying them, but kind of like every 4 or 5, like 3 to 4 months or something, and we'll just sort of kind of check in with them to sort of say, oh, how are you getting on? Have you thought about this anymore, or that kind of thing? And I think that ended up working, especially with the Cheese Factor in town, where like I know I originally messaged them and they just didn't seem that interested, and then like I think they started to realize that we were kind of starting to get a bit of a more businesses involved, and so they were kind of thinking, oh, okay, we want to be part of that, and so they ended up starting to provide refills in your tea and coffee refills without the single-use plastic cups. And then like I got a message like, and it wasn't, and so that was great, and I thought, well, that's one swap, or you've made 1 or 2 swaps, but it's not the 3 swaps that you because this is the thing. It's like, it was frustrating. Like I met some businesses that were like, well, we're doing this. It's like, well, you've only done 1 or 2 swaps. It's not enough for the 3 swaps that you need. You need at least 3 swaps to register them as a Plastic Free Champion business. And so that was the same for like the Cheese Factor, where like they kind of were doing a little bit, but then it just kind of a bit over time they were kind of, I think that's the thing, once the seed was sown about that, they were like, it was always in the back of their mind that they wanted to become a Plastic Free Champion. And I think they worked really hard actually, because I think it was like towards the end of November or something, I got an email from the Cheese Factor saying, we've been working really, really hard with our suppliers, and we're really delighted to let you know that we're now selling plastic-free cheese boards or something, for Christmas. And it was like, that was great, and that was the 3rd swap that I needed. And so like, finally, sort of like in November, I could kind of finally award them with the status, and that was just really great.
So it sounds like you're just nudging people along until they get to it's like a tipping point, and they're over that the last hurdle. Then, have you also noticed in terms of the wider community, perhaps the consumer, are they more aware of what's going on? Are they kind of going, oh well, we don't have to use single-use plastics here. We'd like not to be able to use it there. Is there any demand from the consumer as well?
I don't know. It's just been really difficult, really, because I think, yeah, I mean, I think I can only really go on like what we've done in terms of like where we obviously got a Facebook group, and yeah, you know, there's I think there's over 500 people on the Facebook group now, and yeah, they're not all going to be from Chesterfield, but there's a lot of people that I know that are from Chesterfield, and it has like the Facebook group membership has been building over the last year, and you know, more people are still finding out about the group now.
Sure.
But yeah, it's and especially, you know, it was just I think because it just took a bit of time to kind of get sorted. Like it was only sort of beginning of last year, 2020, that like we really started to kind of get into it properly and started to kind of get out there and start to do things, and start getting ourselves sorted properly as a group and everything like that. But obviously, like when COVID hit, like it was just impossible to know what the public support was, and
Sure.
yeah, and it's really difficult to know that really, other than kind of like when you lock down or whatever. Like all you've got is like Facebook sort of members, kind of people on Facebook requesting to join your group, or people signing up to your mailing list, and that, you know, you've only got those kind of stats and sorts of numbers, and then you can also kind of look at as well like numbers of people who are coming to our, you know, so like in Feb, because like I said, last year we started to kind of start getting really properly organized. So in February 2020 we organized our first public talk, and that was from Steph's Sustainable Stuff, and that was the first, you know, physical talk in the pub.
Wow.
And it's like, and I think, you know, we you know, we were sold at, you know, we could only fit 30 people in the room, and so yeah, we were kind of at capacity with that, but then you know, there was appetite for more kind of events, and so when we went into lockdown last year, like we thought, well, let's just take our events online. And so like we set up all these, I started finding speakers who could speak at our events online, and you know, kind of give these online sort of webinars and things, and then like what I would then do is sort of like when I would use those stats again, it's like people would register via Eventbrite for the talks, and then I asked them there, like, yeah, I said, are you from Chesterfield? So I kind of had a picture of local people from that. And then obviously like at the end of 2020, like I made like a Google Form survey to sort of like find out what people thought. And I think we got quite a few. I think we got about 40 responses from that, and a lot of the people were kind of giving us feedback on saying how good our events had been that year and that kind of thing, really. But you know, like and there has been the odd Facebook post on the Facebook group where there's been loads of comments, but you know, we've not been able to have like a big, you know, like you know, to think back to like the anti-fracking meetings where we would have public meetings, and we would be able to kind of talk really about, you know, in a large hall with like 100 people or whatever, and kind of talk about this issue and really start to hear from a lot of people and that kind of thing. We just not, because of COVID and getting ourselves organized last year, we've just not been able to kind of really gain the experience, like, you know, what people really think.
Sure.
And there's obviously a lot more we want to do, and I think, you know, as COVID eases and lockdown eases and stuff, like, you know, I'd love to kind of do more, like, for example, like a market stall, talking to the public more. Yeah, you know, like we've tried a couple of stalls before. Like we did a stall at the Tapton Lock Festival. I think it was like September 2019, and it's like, you know, people don't go to a festival to like speak to like a kind of environmental group, or that they go to a festival to kind of do something fun with the kids, like a fun kids activity, or have some food or something like that. And so like it was really difficult at that time because we just didn't have people kind of coming up to us and talking to us about this. We did have a couple of people, but I don't know, but I'm just hopeful that I think, yeah, we can, we've got a lot of people attending our webinars at the minute. We've got a lot of people on our Facebook group, a lot of people on our mailing list. And, we've got some ideas for how to kind of start to engage people going forwards on that, really. We know that there's still a lot of people in Chesterfield who don't have any, still don't know the issues, really. And so we don't have that engagement, but we'd love to be able to start reaching out more and talking to people.
Well, I think your enthusiasm is infectious, and you've obviously got drive and persistence. You sound like you've got all the qualities to keep this momentum going. Whatever the situation is with COVID, it's going to get better. I can see it already. I can predict it. And you're right. It's discovering what engages people, isn't it? But you already have discovered many ways in which to gather people's engagement, and certainly the webinars are a great thing when people cannot get out.
Yeah, I think like there's still a lot of learning to be had. Like for example, on social media, for example, like I've not done a marketing course before. I've not done I've not done any course on social media or how to maximize people on social media. I mean, and social media, I almost sort of feel is a job in itself, and it almost feels like you almost need a paid person to do social media, really, because when you're volunteers doing social media, it's really, really, really difficult because social media is just never ending. It's just like, you always got to do it every day. And it's like, how are you going to continuously find volunteers to be able to do that? But then it's also really difficult as well, because it's like, well, you've got to think about, okay, what social media do I need to put out about how to really engage people? And that's a real challenge. And I mean, we kind of get the odd, like I said, like last year, we got a couple of posts where there was a lot of engagement on, but it's finding like, it's finding the social media content, but it's not just about what post you want to put out that will engage other people. It's like I said, social media is never ending. So it's like, how much engagement can you really have? Plus we're all volunteers. So we all got jobs and we've all got to do this in our own time. So it's like that's why I said it, social media is a full-time job. You really need to really have a separate person whose job it is just to be thinking about, okay, what content can we have on social media? What content will be really engaging with the public and that kind of thing. And it's a real challenge. I think it's a serious challenge.
I think you're absolutely right. It is, because it's not just one outlet, is it? But social media, I mean, where do you start and where do you finish?
And also as well, like Facebook's changing its algorithms and stuff all the time. So like, I know, like, for example, today, like I saw a post from something called Pebble Mag, and they're like they're kind of an ethical sort of magazine. And they've announced today that they're going to be moving away from Facebook. They said, right, today we've made the decision that we are moving away from Facebook because the Facebook have changed the algorithm so much that people are just not seeing their posts. They're not able to engage, and it's difficult, isn't it? Because you think, well, like you sometimes you can put a lot of time and energy into creating a Facebook post or whatever, and then Facebook then just shoves it back in your face by saying, we're changing the algorithms and we're not able to, a lot of people are not able to see your post. We've got over 500 people on our Facebook group, but when you look at the stats on the numbers of people who have seen the posts, it's something like 30, 40 people. So, well, we've got over 500 people on that group. Why aren't more people seeing the posts? And that is a real challenge. And I can completely understand with Pebble Mag why they want to move away from Facebook. And this is a serious issue. How do we move forwards to engage people properly where we haven't got that barrier like Facebook has with all these algorithms trying to put people off and not being able to see your post?
Yeah, that's very curious. Definitely one to watch. Greg, I'm just aware that we are going to run out of time, so I'm going to ask you my final two questions, one of which is, if you were going to recommend somebody to do something regarding plastics, what would it be?
I think to stick with it, like we always sort of say, like, just choose one room in your house to kind of do something about it. Like, and I think like the bathroom is like one of that like is a really good place to start, because you can kind of think, okay, let's look at the amount of plastic that we use in the bathroom. It might be shampoo, conditioner, it might be hand soap, so that like it might be kind of toilet cleaner or bleach or something like that, so it's kind of like, you kind of have if you just take one room and you think, okay, so and don't say, okay, I'm just gonna just make all my swaps at once. It's just make one little swap and just think, okay, I might try a shampoo bar, for example. And I know some people have said to me before, like, oh, shampoo bars don't work with me, or I don't kind of get along with that, whatever. Then there's always the other option of having a refill. So rather than continuously buying plastic bottles for your shampoo, then get in touch with your local zero waste shop and gonna get it get your bottle refilled. So I think that's kind of one of the easiest things. And then like I think the only other thing I'd say is that just buy a reusable water bottle or buy a reusable coffee cup, and just kind of make it your habit to take that out and about with you, because the amount of difference it can make just by remembering to take your water bottle out with you, it can make a huge difference.
I think that's really good advice and a great take home that pretty much everyone can engage in that. And yeah, really useful advice. Then finally, Greg, imagine yourself, or imagine us in 2050. What's the world going to look like in 2050? You hope. Only a little question.
I think it's quite difficult to be positive about 2050, because I think when governments set these targets of net zero by 2050, we always know that's going to be way too late to tackle the climate and ecological emergency that we're facing. But I think I'd like to hope that like there's more. I think this is it. I think like this could be like the turning point as we start to come out of COVID, and we start to see these kind of messages about build back better, build back greener. And people have been going out more outside and appreciating nature during more during lockdown. And I think like, I'd love to see 2050 as a place where people are connecting more, people are able to walk and cycle more, people are able to like easily go and fill their they can get fresh tap water easily from anywhere around the town. They don't they can get a bus, or they can cycle. But I think 2050 for me probably would be more about like just we kind of had it. I think we've had it with the plastic. I think we've had it with the plastic water bottles, and refill is the norm now. And I think that's it. There is no more single use, because everyone has joined the refill revolution. People are refilling all their products. Nobody is buying products wrapped in plastic in the supermarket anymore, like the pasta and the rice and the lentils, and because the supermarkets are now offering refill, where you can bring your container and you can fill up with your rice and beans and pulses and lentils and everything, rather than continuously buying in plastic packaging. And there are refills everywhere. You can get refills with every single product that you buy. So I would personally love to see that, where we would see like water fountains and people accessible tap water, and people sharing more as well, because we just have way too much stuff. So I'd love to see more like neighborly connectivity, where like maybe on your street or something, people are starting to know their neighbors more, and rather than continuously buying things, for example, like buying a ladder or buying a drill or something, and people are starting to share more, and people are starting to connect more, and people are starting to think, well, we've got enough drills in this world. We don't need that. We can just share one. And if we set up a system in our street where we share things, that we need a spade, or we need a hammer or something. We don't need to go and buy that. It's all about sharing and connecting more, so that we don't just think about consumerism as everyone's got to own something. It's all about we can share, and we can help and connect more with people.
I think that's a vision worth aspiring to. Thank you very much. It's been great chatting to you, Greg. And thanks for all your wisdom and hearing your stories about all the communities that you've helped along the way.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's really brilliant. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. Cheers. How fabulous was Greg? His enthusiasm was infectious, and it was inspiring to hear about the many and varied projects he's been involved with. He certainly gave us a plethora of ideas on local group activities, and many of the organisations he mentioned can be found in the show notes. If you're thinking about reviewing your plastic use, then I thought Greg's recommendation to start on one room was great advice. I'd love to hear your ideas too on reducing plastic, so do get in touch through the website at www.theowlhoot.com. I'd like to thank Andy Shaw for audio editing, Jeremy Jones for providing the music, and you for listening. Next up on the podcast is Peter van der Gaag, Executive Director of Ecosystems Restoration Camps, an organisation that brings local people and global campers together to repair broken ecosystems and restore biodiversity. Definitely something to look forward to. If you want to hear more stories of people doing great things that positively impact our environment, then please do subscribe, rate and review through your podcast app. And why not share this episode with someone you think might enjoy it? Until next time, bye for now.